Hello and welcome to episode 79 of our Conversation to Connect, Let's Get Real podcast powered by Exceptional Connections. I'm Cyndi ONeill-Dady, the founder and chief connector of Exceptional Connections since 2009. This year, actually this month, we're celebrating our 16th anniversary. And so thanks for your support. Our conversation to connect this week is with the amazing and inspiring Marlee Huber. Joining us from Everett, Washington. Welcome, Marlee.
Oh, thank you. It's a delight to be here.
I am so excited to have us roll up our sleeves today and discuss your topic that you shared with our Exceptional Connections community last Tuesday, how to start a conversation with anyone, anywhere, a guide to meaningful connection. So before we dive into this intriguing conversation, I want to take a moment to introduce Marlee to our listeners who may not have already known her and want to get to know her a little better. Share her passion for helping people sneak joy, creativity, and wonder into their everyday lives. So, Marlee Huber is an author, speaker, coach, and photographer who is passionate about exploring beauty, creativity, wisdom, and wonder, and inspiring others to do the same. With a background as an academic librarian, Marlee brings a researcher's depth and curiosity to every topic that captures her imagination. She has a gift for helping people tap into their unique creativity, find their authentic voice, and share their stories with confidence and clarity. That's you. Um, once painfully shy, it's hard to believe.
I
Um,
will.
Marlee Marlee spent over 40 years in direct sales where she learned how to genuinely connect with people anywhere, anytime. Through persistence and heart-centered leadership, she built a successful nationwide business with
Noevir.
Noevir, a Japanese-based anti-aging skincare company, ultimately earning the prestigious title of Diamond Director. Congratulations.
Thank you.
This year, Marlee and her husband, an engineer who keeps her grounded while she brings color to the world, celebrate 49 years of marriage. Wow, that's exciting. Next year's Big 50. Uh,
Yeah.
Together, they've raised two daughters and now delight in the lively adventure of their five grandchildren. So, Marlee, you're amazing. And I love that you said you were painfully shy and yet you went into direct sales. That's a good way to cure you of that, right?
That is an interesting story because I was a librarian and I was, I worked with someone who did not mentor me, but probably undermined my confidence.
Hmm.
And when I resigned, the faculty dean said, "Are you going to go get another job?" And I said, "I can't. I have to rebuild my confidence." And so my cousin came along and she said, "Marlee, you can do this skincare business." And I borrowed her confidence until I had my own. And she sustained me, she equipped me. And I look back and I go, if I had stayed in the library field, I do not believe I would be the person that I am today.
Hmm.
But because I got out, I made that leap out. And I never ever applied for another library job ever because I made that leap out. Um, I got into Toastmasters. I learned how to speak before groups up to, I think the largest group was 1,000 or 1,200 people. Um, I I could talk. I learned to talk to anybody anywhere.
Wow. So that was a blessing.
It was it was a blessing. It didn't feel
Yeah.
like it.
No, it usually
It
doesn't, right?
No, it doesn't feel like it. It felt like, oh my goodness, this was my dream job because it really was. I wanted to be a librarian at that particular academic institution from the time I was 13.
Mm. And
And
you did it.
I did it.
Right? You were. And it
Sure,
just
I was.
reminds me that God, there was he had more for you. So
Yes.
it's
And I'm
almost
so
like
grateful. I'm so grateful.
a mother eagle, kind of shooing her little
Yes.
eaglet
Yes.
out of the nest. You got to go fly now.
Yeah. It's very true. It's very true.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so before we jump into our conversation, again, it's about how to start a conversation with anyone, anywhere, a guide to meaningful connection. I want you to share a little bit more about your journey with our listeners, and you've already started with, transition from being a librarian to direct sales and being able to talk to people. But how did you get to where you are now with your book, your passion for speaking and making a difference in the world?
That's really interesting and it really comes down to my faith. And I heard someone over, like 13, 14 years ago, 15 years ago maybe, say that if you would read the book of Revelation, take one chapter a week, read each chapter out loud once a day, the whole a chapter each week, that you would become more creative because it's the most imaginative book. And I even read that there's no other book in the Bible that has inspired more artwork. Well, I truly believe there's no book out there, period, that has inspired more artwork than that book because it fosters the imagination. Now, there was a time when I did not feel creative. I remember thinking, I'm not very creative. About 25 years ago, I took 2 years, 3 years. It's been a long time ago of quilt design by Master of Fine Arts in quilt and I did not feel creative at all. And so when I first did this exercise of reading through the book of Revelation, it takes 22 weeks because there are 22 chapters. Suddenly it was like my world opened up, and that's when I got into photography. My husband wanted to bicycle across the country, and I had a camera. I didn't know how to use it. I didn't think I could use it. I didn't think I was technical enough. But during the day, I would take pictures on auto and just practice composition, practice looking, practice seeing. And the conversation to connect that we're talking about today, part of it probably comes out of that. Learning to be still by the side of the road in Kansas, waiting for my bicyclist and saying, there must be something beautiful here. And seeing a dead sunflower twisted around a barbed wire and going, oh my goodness, I wonder how long that's been here. Taking that picture that day was like a turning point for me.
Wow.
So out of that trip, I came back from that trip. He went back to work as if nothing had happened. I mean, it was his big dream, but it was like it didn't phase him. He just went right back to work. Me, I pretty much took about 6 years off just to be still, to listen, to observe, to create, begin to create. And that's where I really began to hone my skills as a photographer. Um, and I did a workshop with a writer's workshop, and there was a screenwriter who taught on the word beautiful. And she gave the philosophical meaning of the word beautiful that goes clear back to Plato. And that day, my life changed forever because I became in pursuit of beauty. How do I release beauty? And so it came with my photography. I kept doing the Revelation course uh, for myself. And every time I did it, I would stray into a new area of creativity. And um, once it was my piano. I would go sit. I had worked with a creativity coach by that time, and she asked me to doodle every day. And I'm like, well, I don't feel very inspired to doodle, but I'll go doodle on my keyboard. So I would go doodle on my piano. And out of that came a song that became really part of my book. A life of, let's see, there's a shout, there's a life.
It's hard with you're blurring the back, so it's hard to
Oh,
see.
it's going to be right in front of my face. A life of resounding joy.
There you
And there
go.
was a sound that came out, and the book came out of it. And each time, excuse me, each time that I would go through Revelation, I would have a new revelation on creativity. So that's really where this started. And my book came about, uh, and and it's out of the book. So this conversation to connect really comes out of my book because as I went back through my book, perused it, and thought, my parents really created a rich environment in our home, and it was an environment that included all of the five senses. Their intention was to make our home a little bit of heaven on earth, and I thought everyone lived in a home like that, but I've since learned that quite opposite is often true. So as I began to think about the five senses and how they created this environment of seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling that was heavenly, I realized that's how conversations can be too.
Mm. Wow, that's a beautiful lead in. And I love your story and thank you for the encouragement to reread the book of Revelation. And I've heard also that the book of Revelation is the only book in the Bible with a blessing.
It's got seven of them.
Seven blessings. That's right. There's seven blessings. So,
It's really, there are principles of design, and I learned and elements of design. And I learned that when I did this 2 years of quilt design, I really learned about those um, principles and elements of design. And what I discovered is when you get into Revelation, it's almost like unknowingly you begin to recognize the principles of design. It's amazing.
and it all starts with the design of the universe.
It does. It does.
Our creator created,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. Well, thank you. So let's jump into your topic, which is really, to me, so inspiring because you know that my heart is connection. And I created for Exceptional Connections the 6 steps to exceptional connecting: connect, discover, listen, contribute, follow up, and nurture. And your perspective of including the five senses in that process is just really brilliant. And so let's jump into that. So when you shared with our community, I'll just start us off with this. You set the foundation for your talk around trust. And
Right.
so I want to kind of kick that back to you. Who can we trust? What are we in search of?
That's very important that we know who we can trust because we're really in search of kindred spirits, as Anna Green Gables. She was always looking for her kindred
Oh, I
spirit.
love that. That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite
Yeah.
books
And
and movies.
we're looking for our tribe. We're looking for who do I resonate with. And you can meet someone for the first time and get into conversation and you're just clicking along on all cylinders because they resonate with who you are and you resonate with who they are. So you're really looking, searching out for people who are genuine, people who are authentic, people who are dependable. And it really is a numbers game. My daughter read this book, and actually I read it too. It was a woman who had moved from Chicago or New York to Chicago, and she was in search of a new best friend. So what she did, she just made conversation everywhere she went, and she would encounter people and she would say, "Can we have coffee?" And so every week for a year, she would have coffee with a new person that she met in search of her new best friend. And I thought, how brilliant. So she broke the silence every time and she was looking for, and she made some friends. She didn't ever come up with that new best friend in that year, but you're looking for who can I trust? Who is believable? And it's very important. And we all begin with hesitancy. We're all hesitant, like, okay, do I, we may be off put by how they look. Maybe they dress, they're a different generation and they dress quite differently than we do. And so we can be off put in networking situations like, who do I talk to? Who do I feel comfortable or competent with? And that was me once. But if we will just step out and do the numbers game, it truly is a numbers game, we will begin to meet those people. And we need to know that they, very much like us, will conceal who they are. And moments they will reveal, and then there are other times they retreat. And we never know why. It's human nature and it's what's going on in their life. So that's really what we're looking for is who can I trust? Who's going to be part of my tribe?
That's beautiful. And you know what I found over the years too is the people that I kind of try to check my spirit instead of going to the people that are shiniest and look, go to seek out somebody who nobody else is talking to.
Right. I loved when Kim Pelham said that she went up to a woman who no one else was talking to at a networking event, and it turned into a very profitable real estate deal. And
Right.
and that's it. We never know. I was
Uh,
standing in a line in New Orleans many years ago uh, for beignets, which are really popular down there. And I was with a whole group, there are probably 50 of us with Noevir. And this one woman looked at me and she said, "Who are all these people? You all look like movie stars." Everybody had great skin. Well, we
mhm.
began to have a conversation, and she became one of my uh, customers for many, many years. And she lived in Indiana.
Oh, that's a great story. So you break the silence. I love the way you say that. When you break the silence, that opens up the potential, the opportunity for a new friend, a business opportunity. There's so many different things that are possible when we take that leap. So share with us some of um, your tips, your things that have worked for you and how to engage with people.
Well, I think one of the things is engaging with the eyes of the heart. We can't see through the heart, but very often when we get in conversation, then we get to a place where like, oh, okay, this is what's happening and this is what's making you tick. So I like to imagine that you're a portrait photographer, because a photographer does not just snap pictures like, oh, smile, let me snap you in front of Mount Rainier or whatever, but they're looking for your soul. They're looking for what makes you tick. And it- when you captivate a person like that and you can print it out, that picture can be something that you look at and look at. I think we all remember the photographer who captured the Afghan girl, and she was on uh, I think it was the cover of National Geographic, one of the most famous
Mhm.
portraits ever taken,
Mm,
because it was so haunting. Who is this girl? And that's what we're looking for. We're looking to get to the soul of a person, because
mhm.
if we really want to meet them in business and solve their problem, which is what sales is all about, solving a problem, we have to know what's important to them. We have to know their values and what makes them tick.
I'm going to add something. One years ago, when I was just starting to have speakers for exceptional connections, outside speakers, this one speaker from Canada, her topic was sales is an act of love.
Oh, beautiful.
And I thought that's kind of a unique perspective, but I've come to really appreciate the wisdom and the brilliance in that statement and how it reflects what you're saying right now.
Yeah, yeah. It's looking for their deep need, because everybody has pain, and if your product can solve some of their pain, that's what you're looking to do. So I think what we have to do is we have to realize that every individual is poetry, and we may not see the poem right off, but they have a design. I truly believe that we are unique. We each have a design, and our story is worth telling. We were downtown Everett at I think it was Sort of Culture, or one, or and I was sitting there waiting for my husband. He was ordering something and waiting for the food, and as I watched the people walk by, I'm like, oh Lord, I just love these people, because each one has a story. Each one is unique. And I think when we go into business and we meet people with that intention of discovering their story, everyone's life is richer. Everyone's life is richer.
Mhm.
It means you have to withhold judgment. You can't go, oh, I don't know about that person.
Yeah.
You need to extend grace. And like I
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's so true. Because that's a block. that keep, even like in networking, like we said, go to the, and not to say anything negative, but the person that not everybody else is going to. So, certain people attract people, and sometimes people who are new, they're sitting by themselves or what have you. There's something um, just really beautiful about being open to the possibility
Right.
in anybody, in any relationship.
I have a great story on that. My friend from college, her uncle farmed out in Ritzville, which is probably, I don't know, 50, 60 miles out, maybe not that far. It's not far out from Spokane. And he was sitting on his combine one day, and apparently it was a good harvest. And he decided he was going to go in. He'd never had a Mercedes. He'd always been a Cadillac man. And he thought, I think I'm going to go into Spokane today and pick out a Mercedes. And so he walked off his combine and walked in his Cessna, climbed in his Cessna, flew to Spokane, got a car, and or maybe took a taxi. I don't know how he did it. Uh, Went to the Mercedes dealership. Well, no one would talk with him. Nobody would talk with him. So he said, well, okay. So he went back to Cadillac, walked into the Cadillac store. No one would talk with him but the greenhorn, who was desperate to learn how to sell and everything. So everybody else was over in the corner, kind of smirking at, this greenhorn, this new sales guy talking to this guy who, you know, has just come out of the wheat field. And my friend's uncle paid cash.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Pretty Woman, like that one scene that she comes in and she's like, she confronts the sales clerk that scoffed her. And you just never know. You've got to, especially in sales, you have to be
Oh,
open.
oh, you have to be open because you don't. I remember being on a plane on one of our Noevir trips, and there was a couple they were kind of dowdy looking, but I remember the person that sat by them that was with our group said, "Oh my goodness, these people are gem importers. They have a store, I think it was in Manhattan or somewhere, and they import diamonds and gems from all over. But to look at them, you would not had any idea that of what they did.
I just remember where she said, big mistake, huge.
Big mistake. I'm sure when that young guy took that check and everybody else is like, oh, I could have had that deal.
Right.
They
If they
all,
had been open. I mean,
yeah,
whatever. The fact that he was hungry, okay, whatever. But he was open and
yeah,
he had the courage to go up to that guy, whether it took courage or not. Uh,
right. So we open ourselves to those who are open to us. So
mhm.
who did he write the check to? He wrote the check when this young guy is like hungry for a sale, and here's a cash deal.
Yes.
And when we open ourselves, we break the silence. So that young salesman, he had to endure the scoffing of everyone else when he walked up to this seedy looking farmer.
Right.
But as photographers, so bringing it back around to photography, we're looking for the moment that the soul comes into view. And
Mm,
it wasn't about this man, her uncle, having his best clothes on. It was like he had the money in his pocket. He was ready to, negotiate.
hmm. That's so true. Okay, so you talked about 9 ways to open a conversation. Let's talk about those.
I saw this chart in a book. Oh my goodness, I bet 35 years ago, and it's like it opened up a new world for me. Um, that we can talk to anybody. Three things you can do. You can ask a question, you can make an observation, or you can state a fact about yourself, about the other person, or about the situation, the environment you are in.
Mhm.
And so if I screen share, let's see if I can do this. I'll screen share my chart. Ta-da, ta-da. Okay. Okay. Now let's see. Of of course, I can't get to the button that would have me. There it is. Play slide.
Perfect.
Okay, there we go. There we go. So it's really pretty easy. Um, do I have lettuce?
First questions you ask a question, make an observation, state a fact. So those are the top of your chart.
So at the top of my chart, yeah, you can. So you're standing in line and you're going, want to open a conversation with this person? How do I do it? I could ask a question. Very often we'll see someone, are you in line? And that's a great opener. Are you in line? And sometimes that will open things. Make an observation. Wow, this line is taking a long time. Or state a fact, you know, oh my, it's raining outside, however you want to do it, but it's so easy to do, and all it does is it stops the silence. It opens conversation.
Mhm.
Um, and then you just follow up with the next question and the next one or the next observation. And before you know it, you have a beautiful conversation going. It is so easy. And so I just kind of memorize that in my head. And everywhere I go, that's just what I do.
I love this. And also, you said silence opens conversation, but it also opens possibility.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's it.
So this is a great tool to use and to memorize. And you can put anything in those boxes, like you
Oh,
said,
anything.
it's open-ended. But when you're looking at it from the perspective of myself, like, like you said, is there lettuce in my teeth,
Yeah.
or, you know,
Yeah.
uh, whatever. I'm thinking about wearing, sometimes people put their shirt on backwards or something like that.
Oh, do I have my shirt on backwards? Yeah. And if there can be a little humor in it, that just helps, you
Yeah,
know?
because then there's a story for that. Then it's like, oh my goodness, that's what I get for dressing in the dark or whatever, or
Exactly.
I was,
Exactly.
taking care of my grandkids. I didn't want to wake their grandchild, so it just opens up all kinds of possibility. Oh, you have grandchildren? How many?
Yeah.
And then that's when common ground kicks in.
Yeah. So it's so easy, and like I say, I've done it all over in all kinds of environments. It's just what I do because it's much, when we did our trip across America and I was out there during the day for 4 or 5 hours alone. Um, I would have conversations. I wanted to meet the people because we were on the back roads of America. I wanted to meet some people. I wanted to have something to share when, evening came and my bicyclist and I got back together of who I met. And it just opens conversations. I remember I was in, was it Kansas? I'm thinking it was Kansas. Um, and I was walking down the street and there was a man in a three-piece suit came out of a house and he crossed the sidewalk where I was going. And I was ringing my bell because I had this friend tell me, get a Liberty Bell and ring it across America. And so I was ringing my bell and he looked at me like, who's this woman? It was a small town, so he didn't know me. Who is this? And I said, oh, I'm ringing my bell across America. And he looked at me and he said, I'm the mayor of this city. And he said,
I love
"You
that.
ring your bell." And I felt like, wow, he's giving me uh, a permission. He's giving me
Yeah,
authorization to ring that bell. The next thing I know, he he said, "Now, if you go," and he saw me with my camera. He said, "If you go down this street 2 blocks and make a right turn, there is a house on the corner that you need to photograph." And so I did what he said to do. I got down there and I stood there and it was an immense house. It was like 3 stories high with a cupola and a big iron gate fence and everything. And I'm standing there probably with my mouth open and this car drives up. The woman window goes down and the woman says, "Would you like to know about this house? I lived there for 10 years." And I'm just like, whoa, how does this happen? But it started
wow.
because I initially saw this man looking at me with my bell and announced what I was doing. I'm ringing my bell for liberty or for freedom across the nation. You ring it right here. And so it could open wonderful, wonderful, memorable conversations and make friends.
That's a divine appointment.
It
You
was.
had a divine appointment. That's beautiful. And I know you've had a lot of those.
Oh my goodness, I get them
You're
all the time.
you're a magnet for those.
I am. I am. It's so true. And I it just happens to me daily. If I go out, I have an experience with someone that is amazing. It just happens to me. But I think the secret is I learned how to break the silence. And unity is where the blessing is. And when you strike up a conversation using these nine, possibilities, you bring about unity.
Mm.
And you can be on the same page, and it can be a beautiful, beautiful thing.
I love what you said at our event. I had it on my notes. It doesn't matter what you say. It just matters that you are, like you said, a silence breaker. And
Right.
so that's your mission, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Okay.
silence and then it is a numbers game. You need to connect with a lot of people. And some people they don't want to be intruded on. They don't want the silence to be broken. And then you just move on.
Exactly. And you can figure that out pretty fast.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious.
Okay, now I'm trying to escape from this and find my cursor. If you can see that, you could stop the share too. But
Let's see. Only one presenter could share at a time. Okay.
oh, okay. I'm just trying to stop the get escape. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay,
Yeah,
stop.
I think we figured escape was the
We got it. We got it.
okay, perfect. Uh,
Yes, you
so
need to.
let's jump into the five senses of connection now. So you laid a
Okay.
beautiful background for it.
The first one is obviously seeing, and that's what I was talking about. Imagine that you are a portrait photographer and you're going to take that picture and how you want to get to the soul of that person. You don't want to just get them to give that big smile, but you want them to look like um, who they are. And so you catch them in the off moment um, when they're being real. So we were up at Stevens Pass at the ski area in the middle of summer, and this man walked in who had almost completed the Cascade um, Trail, from the southern border. And I said, "Oh, I'd love to get a picture of you." Well, he wanted to do the mug shot, and I took a picture too, but that wasn't what I wanted. And then what he did, he reached down and he took off his boot and started massaging his foot. And I'm like, that's the picture I want. Because after a couple thousand miles of walking that Cascade Crest Trail,
Yeah.
a foot massage, that was the real picture. So that's what you're going for. You're going for, oh yeah, those dogs are going to feel better when I'm not walking 15 miles a day or whatever.
You captured the essence of not
Yes.
really who he is, but his experience, right?
Yes, yeah. The dusty boot was sitting there by him and he had one leg crossed over the other and he was just massaging his feet.
But
And
you indulged him by taking the smiley can photo, right?
mugshot pictures, but I
Yeah.
knew that that wasn't what I wanted. What
Mm,
I wanted was the weary man, the man who's almost done,
yes.
and he's massaging his feet, and it was a beautiful portrait.
Well,
So,
I'm going to interrupt you for a second because you just gave me an insight into when you gave the presentation for our Exceptional Connections community last Tuesday, your slide deck had so many just rich photos, not only of members of our community and capturing their essence or them in action, but also, you had pictures of people that you've met along the way on your journey,
right,
like this gentleman. And
right.
I was looking through your slide deck and I was like, oh my gosh, how does she do that? How does she capture that? So you just gave the secret to it in talking to them and because they're not posing for any of those photos, you can
No,
tell.
no. Oh, there might be one or two where they're posing, but very rare. Yeah, it's you want to, and that's how it is with networking, with meeting people. You want to get to the point where they're not just, best face forward, so to speak, but they're real.
Right.
that's when you're going to, I mean, I immediately identified, okay, this guy's feet are sore. That's his story. I mean, and every picture, that's what you really want in a portrait. You want it to tell a story. And this picture of this man massaging his foot and his old dirty sock, and, his backpack was sitting next to him, and it told the complete story.
Yeah, that's a great example of a picture says a thousand words, right?
Yes, yes, and that's what you're going for. So my next section was on hearing and listening, and I was at one of the Exceptional Connections meetings, and I was talking to this young woman. She had a beautiful accent, and I'm like, "Where are you from?" And she said, "Brazil." Well, I had done a report in school, I think 5th grade, maybe, on Brazil. And so I was like, "Whoa, I get to meet somebody from Brazil who speaks Portuguese." And it's such a beautiful language. And so we had such a wonderful conversation. We followed up. She invited me to 2 events that followed that. And then, it kind of unfolded that way. But that is so key to meeting people. And, the world has come to our doorstep, and we don't have to travel the world to have amazing experiences. And I mentioned being at the Y one day working out on some equipment, and there was a man next to me. And I don't remember how I opened the conversation that day, but it turned out he was from the Panama Canal Zone. Now, I had just purchased the book for my husband on the history of the Panama Canal Zone because it was in the news. And he gave me a history in 5 minutes. And even his nationality, his father spoke French and came from, I can't remember what island nation. His mother spoke Spanish. They met in the canal zone. He was born in the canal zone. He said, "I'm a zoni. When you're born in the canal zone, you're a zoni." He explained about the mosquitoes and everything and why so many people died of malaria. I mean, it was an education, but it would never have happened had I not inquired, "Where are you from?" I mean, we began to get to the heart of who this man was. So listening with appreciation and letting people know, "Wow, you have a beautiful accent. Where are you from?" So you're honoring them. You're not accusing. You're not prying. You're complimenting. You're saying, "Where are you from? Your accent is beautiful." And it will open amazing doors.
Right. Well, I love your heart and your desire to really explore relationships in this talk you're really unlocking the power of the five senses. But you are really putting stories and really more content and richness behind the 6 steps to exceptional connecting. So if we can weave those together, the connecting piece you were talking about, just breaking creating common ground and breaking the silence, and then discovering is the asking questions and being curious. It's more important to be interested than interesting. And then the piece that you're talking about, listening, which is, I think, such a critical part of that process because you don't learn anything if you're talking.
Exactly. Exactly. And when you begin you just keep asking question after question after question, and not as if you're prying, but as you're curious and you're interested, people will go away and say, "Oh my goodness, I just had the most amazing conversation." And
Doing all the talking.
they didn't learn anything about you, but
Right.
they got to, because I remember meeting a psychologist who knew her, and she told me that women need to say things to process. We need to speak to process things. And so,
I thought that was just me.
no, no, she said from a psychological standpoint,
Hmm.
we have to hear ourselves talk to be able
Mm.
to process. And so when you ask questions of someone, inquire, and they begin to hear themselves talk, they begin to learn more. I mean, there be times when people have asked me questions and I'm answering them. Suddenly I'm getting new insights that I never had before. I'm like, whoa, that one's new. Um, so it's it's really a gift to them. And I know in coaching, we learned that you don't give them the answer. You ask the question that pulls the answer out of them because people believe what they say, not what you say. If you suggest you should go do such and such, then I don't want to do that. But if you can ask the right question and they'll come around and go, I think I need to go do such and such. You have given them the gift of it being their own idea and coming out of their own mouth.
Yeah, and that's a brilliant sales technique too. Because you're right, people put things through filter. I've got to talk to my wife, I got to talk to my husband. There's all these,
Yeah,
ways that people use to you know, put a
yeah,
sale off or stall or
yeah.
not move forward with their decision. But when you ask the right question, they're talking themselves into it. That's brilliant. I love that. Okay, so we've talked about seeing and hearing. What's the third sense of
Touching,
connection?
touching. And that seems like, oh, that's a little dangerous. But touching is really getting to the heart of who they are, getting to their essence. And um, we're all attracted to light. And when we see the light that's on a person, and I believe there's a light on every person, it has to do with our divine design, how we're designed. It's unique. And when we begin to do that, we get to their purpose. And how you can identify them is look for the joy. Look for when their pitch goes up and they start talking faster and they're so excited, and you just sit there and you just bask in the glow of who they are, and just keep that inviting them. At that point, keep inviting them to tell you more. Tell me more. Tell me more. Often, I will break the silence with someone by saying, "What is your big dream?
That's a good question.
What is your big dream?" It just pops out of my mouth. What is your big dream? Just there'll be an opportunity, and maybe a few words before that, and then I'll go, "What is your big dream?" And it's so fun to hear them um, tell their big dream.
Because that's where they get out of their head and into their heart. And
Yeah.
that's where they're sharing their passion.
And the important thing to remember about that, don't throw cold water on their big dream. You know,
Mm,
honor that. It's sacred place. Uh,
yes.
and I remember when my husband, wanted to bicycle across America, and I tell people we're going to go do this. And I was so excited because I love to travel, and just the thought of being on the back roads of America seems so wonderful. And I cannot tell you the dozens of people that said, be careful, be safe, be careful, be careful, be careful, be careful. They didn't say, oh, have an awesome time. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to hear your stories. It was, be careful. It's not safe out there. And,
Wow.
that was really raining on our parade. I just like, oh, I felt like I was under a shadow of a rain cloud of this be carefulness.
hmm That's a good thing to consider is just honor people's dreams. And
Right. Right. Yeah. So when you do listen to someone like that, oh my goodness, they'll never forget you.
mhm.
I was downtown last week when they did fresh paint, and there was an older woman and a younger man at one of the booths, and I just started talking with them, and well, actually, the woman said to me, she said, "Oh, I love your colors." I had a lemon yellow sweater on and a multicolored scarf. She said, "I love your colors." And I said, "Well, I'm an artist too." And then we got to talking, and it turned out the young man was her grandson. And I just started asking him about his dream and what he did and what he wanted to do. And, I didn't say, "Are you going to college?" Because he just graduated. I said, "What are your plans?" And he began to share a little bit. And I just encouraged him and just spoke into his life, like I've talked about here, about you're special, your design.
Mhm.
Yes, you can do this. You don't, and then he moved away to help a customer, and his grandmother said, "Thank you so much." She said,
Hmm.
I knew when you walked up you were special. She said, it was
Oh,
just, just something about you. And she
yeah.
said, thank you so much for speaking, telling him what you told him, speaking into his life. And
Mhm.
we can do that everywhere we go. We can just do that.
And it doesn't cost us anything. Compliments don't cost you anything.
I went home feeling so good. I'm like, whoa, I didn't know there was something about me that lit
Right.
when I walked down the street. But if you're speaking from the heart and looking for the heart of an individual, it will show on the outside.
And you're just being you, but
Yeah.
that compliment encourage
Yeah.
that response because the opposite could happen just like the library, your experience as a librarian, it could kill something too. It could kill that desire. So that was a two-way street as well. She
It,
acknowledges
it
you.
definitely was. It definitely was. It definitely was. Yeah. So the last one is tasting. And we go, tasting? Oh my goodness. You know, hospitality, and Cyndi, you do that so well. I've been to your house several times with your garden parties, and when we open up our home, when we open up our heart and we are generous and we're hospitable and we share food. I remember, oh my goodness, I don't even know how many years ago, 15, 20 years ago, hearing Rabbi Lappin, who was local. He was a Jewish rabbi, and he was talking about the importance of the meal in doing business. And he was saying that will never stop because people were saying, well, maybe we'll get past that. He goes, no. And it was to the effect of when we share a meal with someone, it's like it takes off the facade and we get to the real person. And that's where business can really be done because we're vulnerable and we could get lettuce in our teeth. Um,
Yeah, that's the breaking bread piece, right?
it's the breaking bread piece. Yes, and it's interesting because after I never forgot what he said that day. I was just like, whoa, this is profound. This is so important. We need to do more of this. And so I did a little research on it, and it actually improves our mental health when we share meals. It
Mhm.
encourages bonding, creates memories, enhances communication, builds trust. And everybody's equal when we're around. I use the example of you bring out a tray of cookies and everybody reaches, don't they? There's no pecking order. It's like, whoa, everybody dives in. I want a fresh cookie. There's something about sharing that meal and that cookie that is so important. And
Mhm.
that's why what happens in exceptional connections is so important. And you have built a real community. It's not a grab, 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 pass your business card and grab business, but it's about taking time to savor, to build friendships, and to deepen trust. And that's where real business can happen because we discover that we have common shared values and we see where our community works together.
Yeah, it's laughing together, experiencing,
Yeah.
not necessarily cry together, but, experiencing the whole depth of emotion, and being able to be real. And
Ex-
so um, that is so critical. So your sense of smell, um, you did taste earlier, right?
I'm doing taste now and smell. Smell,
Yeah.
this was an interesting one, but I thought about smelling reveals the truth identity. We'll pull something out of the refrigerator, and what do? We give it the smell test? Okay, I think this I need to throw out because it doesn't pass the smell test. And I had the picture of the two sheep where the one is smelling the other, sniffing the other. And I said, if it smells like a sheep, it is probably a sheep. If it smells like a wolf in sheep's clothing, beware, because you get a sense something smells fishy here. Something's not right here.
Right.
We'll say that relationship went sour. Um, truth is determined, purity, the truth is determined by smell. And
Think of all the expressions that are around that. Like you said, something smells fishy.
yeah, yeah.
That relationship went south or whatever, or
I
went.
smell a rat.
Smell a rat. Yeah.
Rat. Yeah, it's
How interesting.
yeah, I could tell a story. There was across the street from us, there was a house for sale, and I heard I was in my backyard and I heard this guy on a phone and he's going on and on and on and rather braggadocio. And I'm like, what in the world is going on at this empty house across the street? Well, I walked out there and I'm listening to him and I'm like, oh, that's the guy that my daughter told me that would come into Starbucks. And the guy was a real shyster kind of guy. I'm like, that's his, call him Pierre. That's Pierre. Well, sure enough, it was. And then he was just hanging out there at that house. And my daughter had told me that his house had burned down and he was living in a hotel and everything. So I just walked over there as if he was the real estate agent. And I said, oh, I'd like a tour of the house. And he said, oh, you can't come in here. He had the garage door open. He did not have the front door open where the lock is. He had the garage door open. It just did not, something wasn't right. And I finally got a hold of the owner's son. The owners were older and they had moved to like a retirement home. Got a hold, I said, I think there's somebody living in your house. And there was, and it was this Pierre guy. And I mean, there's a whole story that goes with this. But he told me, oh, you can't come in here. I'm making an offer on Monday. I'm gonna put a big fence all the way around here and bring my Rottweilers. And I'm just like, something doesn't smell right. Well, he had figured out how to get in a basement window and he had climbed in there. It's the craziest story.
Wow.
It was the craziest story. So we're looking for the truth of identity. I knew there's something fishy going on. I kept thinking, this doesn't compute.
That
S-
was your gut. That's your visceral instinct that had you feel that way. And then, you were able to explore that. Um, think about something else. When people are selling a home, a lot of times they tell you to bake cookies, right?
Yes, they do. Or
So that
put cinnamon in water and let it, simmer so
a
that it smells.
diffuser, right? Put a diffuser, but something that the smell again, you want people to have a sense, awaken that sense of home.
Right, right.
Home.
Yeah. So
Arrived.
that takes us really through the five senses of seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, smelling. And I think if we look at relationships this way, not only does it help us find people who resonate with us, but it helps us to be that person.
Yes.
I have the picture of the 90-year-old woman who, um, it's a beautiful portrait. I had taken it over in Eastern Washington. She was had a little antique shop. And she told me her story, and I said, "Can I take your picture?" And I mean, there was such clarity in her eyes and truth.
Mm.
She had nothing to hide. It was a life well lived. And I think that's what we all seek for.
That's so beautiful. Well, Marley, thank you so much for sharing your stories, your insights. I love the analogy of the five senses in building relationships and creating community. That's my heart too. And whenever we can get a new perspective on something, it just breathes new life. And so I want you to know that not only are you a contribution to me and our community as our photographer, somebody who views things, you view joy and beauty through your eyes and you reflect that at our meetings, and we're so grateful to you, but also this new part of you that we're discovering since your book was published and you're launching out as a speaker. You really have so many deep, just beautiful insights into humanity, into life. And so I just want to thank you for being a contribution in so many ways to me personally and to our community. And I'm excited about what God has in store for you
Thank you.
and the opportunity to really partner with you. I consider it partnering and getting this message out to people about, the value of communication and relationships and how we can encourage one another in that journey. Not only like I get encouraged too, because I want to be able to have you've broadened my horizon through your exploration on how to bring communication to life. And not only for the business community, which is, our heart, but also you and I talked about this before we got on, on the call here. for the younger generation,
Right.
to be
Yes.
able to be a contribution to them, because I loved your insights about that. They're on their phones all the time. They're constantly you had mentioned, and I think it's a really brilliant insight that they have a younger people, the younger generation tends to have uh, challenges in being able to communicate with people of different ages.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, they're very comfortable when they identify someone's their age. But even, I mean, I remember high school thinking, oh my goodness, I'm a sophomore and they're a senior. Do I dare talk with them? That kind of thing. So, oh my goodness, we're pigeonholed. And if if you can teach this to young people and help them practice it, um, my son-in-law needed to have be transported to the hospital, and 911 was called, and my 15-year-old grandson was out there with him, and the EMTs said, "Oh my goodness, this boy is such a good conversationalist." Because he could converse with them and tell them what they needed to know, and how, I mean, he managed the whole thing. Um, and that's what we want our young people to be able to do.
Was he a homeschool kid?
He's a homeschool kid. Oh,
Yeah. Well, and I homeschooled my kids, and we talked about that earlier. And then I did discover firsthand that kids that are homeschooled around people that of different ages, whether it's a toddler or an elderly person, and they're comfortable interacting with people with different ages and being curious. And I think
yes,
that's what we need to do instead of you use the word pigeonhole, and I think it's a perfect word in our current school system. We do pigeonhole and put kids of the same age in the same classroom.
yeah.
And that really doesn't facilitate them being curious or comfortable dealing with people of different age, ranges.
It does not serve them well. And
No.
I'm reminded of, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, they're in a co-op, and he's a teenager, and there's a little 5-year-old girl at lunch, and she's not comfortable. And I think Connect Four, he started playing Connect Four with her, and the mother was so thankful. She went to my daughter and says, "Oh my goodness, Samuel, he was so kind, and he played with her, and he did this game with her, and it didn't bother him that, there was a 10-year age difference. She needed a friend."
Right.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Well, thank you for all that you've shared. Thank you for you and who you are and how you let your light shine and so generously sharing with our community. So I just want to toss it to you to give one last closing thought before we close this conversation.
Just break the silence. Just try it. Just do it. And an elevator is a great place because everybody stands there like, I can't dare talk to anybody. But break the silence and you'll find out there are real people. There are beautiful people behind that silence.
Beautiful. And that's a muscle you can flex, right?
Oh, absolutely. All the time.
So it might be hard at first, but it'll get
Oh,
easier.
it gets so easy. It gets so easy. It's hard to keep your mouth shut.
I love that. Well, although you did not create an offer for our community, I'm going to be putting on in the description of this conversation how they can get in touch with you, your website. Is there any other way that you want to communicate with people if they're interested in getting your book? And how would someone get your book, by the way?
My book is available at radiantlifemapping.com.
Okay, so to go to your website,
Go to my website, and the reason it's there and not on Amazon is because it's once again about the personal touch.
right? All right. Well, thank you. So I want to encourage everyone to be an exceptional connector. And thank you again for being on this call. It's been a joy and blessings to you, Marlee. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who's listening.
Thank you very much for the offer. This was a lovely, I enjoyed this conversation. See, you asked all the questions, I did all the answering, and I'm like, I had a great conversation.
That's how it works. It's
That's
beautiful.
how it works.
All right. Go forth and break the silence.
Okay.